Welcome to the next edition of Meet the Streets, a podcast for street and documentary photographers. Today, part 2 with Richard Koek. Join me each week and meet another photographer from somewhere else in the world. And now, part 2 with Richard.
Let's see, I think that's it. Yep, okay, so that's the end of...
That's the end of New York.
New York. So let's move over to Tokyo. Let me find out what...
Tokyo. That's another folder, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Well, we're going right into the cinematics again.
Oh yeah. No,
Again, this is so Tokyo, the story of Tokyo. So the big difference between my book Tokyo and my book New York is I live in New York, and in Tokyo, I'm in a city which is so much bigger than New York City. It's like of a scale that I did not imagine. And when I was there, I was completely helpless. I was like really thinking, how on earth am I going to capture and make a book about Tokyo? Because I literally had the assignment, Tokyo, a book, it was already on Amazon on pre-sale, and I hadn't photographed a single image. And my publisher already threw it on Amazon for pre-sale, and COVID happened. So I couldn't visit Japan. I couldn't make the book. And for years, it's been on sale on Amazon. And I photographed the book in 2023 because Japan was one of the last countries in the world that opened up to non-citizens.
right.
So the issue with Japan is there's so many things that are it's like the Times Square of Tokyo is the Shibuya crossings. The famous crossings were like so many, I think it's one of the busiest crossings of the world. The amount of people that cross the streets when the lights turn green, and there are 4 crossings. It's like a whole intersection, and it's an amazing dance of people in this urban mass. And I found it very difficult to find an angle that pictures the Shibuya crossing, but in a different way than the Instagram photos that you see. And it was raining, which is for a photographer, I think, a very beautiful thing, because everything reflects the lights. The light is different. The streets get this beautiful shine, this patent leather shine, like Shirley Bassey would say. And yeah, so I love this. It's right at the moment that the light turns red, so there's suddenly a lot of action. And here you see, like, although you see like the salary workers, as they say in Tokyo, the people that go to office and all dressed in dark suits and white shirts. And but the moment the light turns red, everybody becomes the same. Everybody is running and still trying to make it. And the connection that we make is that's what we all do. This running to get to the bus or the subway or to get the light. And yeah, I love the cinematic element of this image. The lights of the cars in the back that give this extra dimension, that layers it for me. The reflections and actually the shadows that those car lights create. And again, my camera is here up in the air because I'm from and because up in the air you can have a nice view of the street. It creates a 3D element of the street. You can like look into the street, but on eye level you cannot do.
All right. Wow.
Yeah,
so much going on here. Oh, this is
yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the thing. Like the moment you see the pics, like, what is going on here? What is this? And it's one of those beautiful scenes, because making the book Tokyo, I did several trips, and the first trip, the thing with Tokyo is I'm an outsider. Compared to New York City, I'm an insider, although still I look with outside view often to New York. But I am an insider. I live here. I do my daily life here. And so what I noticed when I took the first days that I'm photographing in Tokyo, I had this distance from the city because I don't speak the language. I don't know what is written. I'm in this, like, for a photographer, a perfect bubble of visual experiencing, but I didn't connect with people because I didn't know how. And so on my next trip, I was like, I need to connect with people. I need to try to get into places and be in different environments, like August Sander did when he was photographing, the people who are doing the crafts. Like he went into spaces and photographed this thing around it. And this is one of those microcosmoses. I was invited by my friend Yun, Oshima, who lives in Tokyo, and he brought me to this World Cafe, and this is a cafe with a podium
Really?
setting, and they're actually here rehearsing for the nighttime. And on the left, you see the bar owner. Behind the bar, this is lit. This is the bar. Wonderful. And there's so much. It's so dense. This photograph. It's there's so much to see. This is like a painting of like That's what I love sometimes about photographs, that you can wander around and look at all the details, the things that are in there. It's so messy, but then again, so perfect. The beer.
They're selling Brooklyn Lager. They're if you look in the lower left hand corner, there's a case of Brooklyn Lager.
I didn't. Well, here you go. I didn't even notice that.
And then the bar. If you look at the bartender to it, where his face is pointing, there's a mustache and glasses that are still in the pack. So I was trying to figure out, like, is this some kind of like thrift store? It was a music store.
It's a bar.
It's a bar.
World music bar. Wonderful.
That is crazy. I love that.
And then, I'm sorry. To go back, also, it's so beautiful because she's actually playing the violin, which is then again something completely different that you would expect to see in a concert hall with like lots of space, and so it's kind of like this juxtaposition of like serenity with this ADHD setting that it's like put into. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Next one.
So this is the cover.
So basically, this is the setting that that, as you can see, we put, me and the publisher, we chose this picture to put on the cover of Tokyo. There's a whole story behind this photograph that is kind of important to tell, because when in Tokyo, and when I was sharing that with my social media, like, I'm in Tokyo now, so there's a new project, and then people started to give me suggestions. Photograph this, photograph that, go to this. The most crazy situations of like out of this world things that make Japan or Tokyo weird. Like the weirdness as in Lost in Translation, the movie with Bill Murray, made by the daughter of Coppola. And so many people pointed out the weirdness of Japan, which is kind of like the thing that people would like to see, because that's what people expect of a country of Japan. So the Harajuku girls. So this is cosplay, the cosplay trend that was very big in the 80s and 90s. It's basically women or young girls who dressed up in extremely cute outfits. Kawaii, it's called kawaii culture. It's like over cuteness. It's kind of like dressing up like dolls and creating this facade of childhood, and not accepting not accepting to step over into adulthood. There's a whole like backstory of the motivations why these women do this. So Harajuku there's an area in Tokyo very famous of like all these cosplay figurants walking around. So I was walking there looking for Harajuku girls or ladies, and I couldn't find any. And then I realized it's kind of like a myth. It's like there weren't, like, we all think they all walk around like that in their neighborhood. It's absolutely not reality. So I was like literally like totally disillusioned, going back to the subway, thinking, well, I'm not finding any. So what's this hype all about? And then suddenly I see this girl in black standing against the wall. The lady in pink wasn't there yet. So I'm like, there is one. And like, okay, I walk up to her, which is kind of like this awkward situation of this young girl and me, like an older guy, with his camera, walking up. Can I take a picture? It's kind of like, it's talk about like ethical, boundaries. I'm like on the gray area of like, this is kind of weird. And I show my Instagram account. So I try to validate what I'm doing by and which kind of helps with the younger generation. If you show your Instagram account, you're real. And so she accepts, okay, you take pictures. And I had Google Translate, which was my lifesaver in Tokyo. So I want to take your picture. And then she said, I'm waiting for a friend. And then out of this, behind me were the bathrooms. every subway station has a bathroom in Tokyo. This gentleman comes up to me and he starts, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a friend. Bummer, because now I have to like photograph him with her, which kind of like breaks down the whole fantasy of Harajuku. Turns out he didn't know her, but he saw that I was, trying to communicate with her, and he spoke English. So he just wanted to help. He's a good guy who just wanted to like help me. And so, and he repeats, she's waiting for a friend. And then this lady in pink comes walking towards, and I'm like, this is perfect. This is perfect. So they were so helpful. They were posing for me, all like being cute, being kawaii. And then I told him, just go stand against the wall, be in the picture, because I'm photographing with the book in mind. So I'm photographing with spreads in mind. I want every picture to be a spread in my book. So I needed a balance to fill 2 pages. Right. So I was thinking, you're going to be on the other side of the page. And so he's standing there casually and / not casual at all. And so this is the picture that's in the book, and another photograph he chose as the cover, which a big discussion with my publisher. You talk about, the myth, the cliche, the stereotype of Japan, and then you put this picture on the cover, which kind of like defeats the purpose, I felt. But, they basically at a certain point said, it's a very beautiful picture, and it is. It's a beautiful picture, and it tells the story of the cliche that's not really there, but it's part of life as well. Yeah.
Right. And again, luckily he wore the perfect color sweater.
I know. I mean, when it comes to style in Tokyo, it's like it's just wonderful. It's yeah. And that's also the thing. There's a lot of there's a lot of it's a society that rules with that functions with definitely set rules about how to behave and how how you're expected to be, and which creates a perfect order at times. But when you see how people express them individually, it's in the clothing, it's in the way people put all the pots and plants outside. So there's a lot of individualism as well, that people actually don't notice. Yeah, this is a wonderful. This is one of those perfect pictures, I do believe. I was very fascinated by these tiny little shrines that you see in Tokyo, on street corners, within blocks of houses. These small places of devotion that in the morning, before people go to work, people express their gratitude of whatever reason they need to visit the shrine for. And this is at daytime. And I thought this was a perfect setting to photograph one. So for me, it was all about the shrine. But again, here I go fishing again, like the Hasidic Jewish man in front of the red wall. I was waiting for somebody to kind of like fill in what I was missing. And I saw this lady walking a block ahead towards me. And I was like, please don't turn into another street. Please come into my picture. And there she was. And then the moment I took this photograph, I was like, I have it. This is absolute perfect. Yeah.
Yep. Again,
color line.
Yeah, the color balance and it is great between the
and then the softness of the greens and the mute, the tonality. And then it makes the red actually popping more, the blue and the white. She's perfect in red, white, and blue. She's just perfect. Everything is perfect. Yeah. And talk about perfect imperfectness, like the lady with the violin. This is kind of like the same setting. It's like food is a very important element in my book because it's such an important element in daily life in Tokyo. The wonderful food and the way people connect with food, the way people express their love to others with food. It's magnificent. So my friend Juno Shima that I mentioned before, he's the man just drinking his beer on the left side. He said, come with me, because he lives in an outside area of Tokyo. It's the suburbs of Tokyo, Kichijoji it's called. And he said, come, I'll bring you to a nice restaurant. And it's like in the middle of nowhere. Because that's the thing. Tokyo, it's 95% suburban, buildings, people living, people sleeping, people going from home to work. It's all very, very daily and mundane. And this is in one of those neighborhoods. It's quiet outside. There's nothing happening. And this is a house. This is actually where the living room is supposed to be. So this lady who's running this restaurant, and we're wrapping up here. So we just ordered the last tapas. It's what you call it in Spain. I don't know. And she's wrapping up. She's doing her calculations of the day. You see like the price list. It's all very fairly priced. And this is actually the restaurant, literally like 10 seats. That's it. And she makes a living out of this. And that's her daughter on the right corner. And I love this whole setting. I love the food, all the elements, the liquor bottles in the front, going to the middle. But the most important thing is the girl with the glass.
I love her. I stare at her. Yeah.
Yeah, her stare is melancholy or like whatever she was thinking. But it kind of makes her a protagonist in a classical painting. That's how I feel what I'm seeing. And I love the fact that I'm a fly on. I'm literally like, again, with my camera. This time not a monopod, but I'm holding my camera up high to try to get a scope of what is going on here. All these different details, and there are literally only 2 seats on the left side. You see, like 2 seats and a table. That's the only table in the whole restaurant, and I just love this whole I just love this. It's for me, it's a painting. It's just a painting where you can imagine whatever she's going through and whatever is happening. And I hope she made the money I hope the owner made her money. And everybody was just talking Japanese. Nobody felt they needed to accommodate the foreigner who was in this space. I'm in my happy place because nobody bothers me. Nobody's trying to like bring me in. Don't bring me in. Let me be in it and let me just observe and photograph what I find is beautiful. Yeah, this is another one of those things that happened that I could not believe that I'm here. So I had this like fantasy of like, oh, my biggest dream in being in Tokyo would be to be in a sumo stable. And I've looked, of course, I did research. Unfortunately, the season of the sumo tournaments just finished. They were now the biggest sumo wrestlers were already on planes going outside. Actually, in New York, you have this sumo sushi event, which is like the sumo wrestlers from Japan, making extra cash by going on tour. However, so I took a photograph of a lunchroom, and there was a calendar with sumo wrestlers on it. And that was the photograph I took thinking, this is as close as I get to the sumo wrestling. That's it. And then suddenly I said to somebody like, I would love to, I love to photograph sumo wrestlers. And it turns out that was the manager of a kimono designer, artist. And she happened to design the attire of sumo stable, those long coats that they were wearing. She designed them. And so it turns out that there was an entrance to a sumo stable. And then the next day, the manager said, "You're a lucky guy. You have 40 minutes into a sumo stable." And I was like, unbelievable. So here I am in a sumo stable. And you get, of course, in my book, you will find the perfect picture, the sumo wrestlers, in the small circular arena, practicing, it's in there. The cliche is in there. But what I found more interesting was upstairs. They all live in this house, in the stable, 40 sumo wrestlers. 25 sumo wrestlers live in this stable. They all sleep on one big floor. There are no beds. They probably bring out the mats and they sleep on one big space. And there's only one television set in this space. And after each rehearsal, they have their own hairdresser who fixes the hair of the sumo wrestler. And they thought it was strange that I wanted to photograph that because they're not fighting here. But to me, this was like this. So this is called the mage. It's called the mage. It's like he's fixing his hair and binding it into the perfect shape as it's supposed to be. I thought this was just this wonderful, serene picture of a man, this symbol of masculinity, sitting there on his, and this man doing the hair. And the symbol of self-care, of vanity, of whatever, there's probably a large story about the hair, of the traditions that are now involved in it. But I thought this was just a beautiful, serene, very gentle photograph of this fighter who had just finished his practice. So there's a lot of like polarizing elements in one beautiful image. And I think I think it's all just beautiful. And yeah,
not the picture that comes to mind when you're thinking sumo.
Exactly, and that's why I loved it. Yeah, and again, that's why I actually chose this picture as well, because yesterday was the launch event of my book Tokyo, and the curator who questioned me on stage actually picked this image as well. It's a security guard, and in Tokyo people are always meticulously with their uniforms, and they always just look perfect. And he was eating an ice cream, and I was passing him by, and I was like, I thought, first of all, I loved like the whole, I loved this whole body. It's like long, liposome, it's called, so in a suit. But then again, also he was eating an ice cream, which was kind of like a strange thing that you would not expect with somebody in a uniform eating an ice cream. And I asked him, can I take your photograph? And he was like, yes, okay. So sometimes I communicate because I think it's the right thing to ask permission here. Right. And and afterwards I always give my business card. Hardly people ever reach out. But you've mentioned that before in other interviews, the people, like how many people actually get back to you and ask if they could see the photo or get the photo. Never heard from him again. I couldn't speak Japanese, and I didn't really feel that I needed to communicate with him. I thought he looked great. He's basically posing for me right now. But the fact that he's still holding his ice cream makes talk about humor and on the right side of humor. It's kind of a little bit funny that he's eating ice cream, which is something that a little child would do. But he's wearing a uniform and a hard hat. So he's on the job and he's taking a break. And so I love it all.
Very cool.
Yeah, this is another thing. Talk about being introduced into a microcosmos of something I had not imagined I would be at. I'm here in the Backstage in a nightclub, the Amaranth Lounge in Tokyo, where there are burlesque dancers. And man, oh man, so it's introduction through introduction through introduction. I can introduce you to a burlesque dancer, somebody once said, and I'm like, yes, please. And it's back and forth texting. This is not as glamorous as you might hope it would be. There are no mirrors with Las Vegas lights around it. It's all very rudimentary. I was like, this is not maybe what you want. But I was like, everything will be fine. Everything. That's the thing. That's the beauty of my work. It's just throw me into something I would never envision myself, and I'll be just happy to just, view it. And so I'm here being a fly on the wall where all the ladies are preparing themselves for the burlesque entertainment that they are doing actually downstairs. It's this really tiny nightclub. And this is one of the dancers. This is the dancer who invited me, and she's here doing her makeup. And behind Coco is just coming in. She's one of the go-go dancers there, and this is just wonderful. The whole story of this, because when you talk about Japan, it's also it's a very male-dominated society, and you can still read that in the news, and so there's a lot of things that Japan is still dealing with in order to now I'm losing my train of thought here. But anyway, so basically it was wonderful to be in a place where these ladies were self-secure about their sexuality, about the thing that they were doing, their passion for dance, their passion for entertainment. And the ladies were in age ranging from 20 to 60. They were burlesque dancers. And the lady who was 60 was at the table doing her makeup. And she spoke English. So she asked me like, do you speak Japanese? And I was like, no, sorry, I don't. And then she smiled at me and she said, well, maybe that's a good thing. And then I realized it is a good thing. I have no clue what these ladies are talking about. I'm totally like, so they couldn't care less that I was there because I had no idea what they were like, you know. So I wasn't part of their conversation and I couldn't hear the conversation. I could only see. And again, my happy place, they gave me all the freedom. I could photograph whatever I want. But then again, I didn't feel the need to put breasts in the book, to like, you know, I still want to be respectful and I want to tell the story with something beautiful that I deemed was more appropriate. And this was one of those pictures.
Cool.
And this was the picture on stage. So basically, literally there was no space for me to move. I was standing here and that was it. It was packed, jam-packed around me. And what you see, that's kind of funny because actually in the mirror, which is kind of perfect, but you see a guy standing. That's the owner of the bar, the lounge. And so basically he's holding a little light spot. So he's lighting, he's being like the super trooper, lighting the dancers, so follow the dancers. And she's doing, and this is one of the younger burlesque performances. And yeah, everything is perfect here. The whole setting. It's a perfect spread for a book, and I was very happy that I've managed to capture this. I'm very happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you're in somebody's living room.
Yeah, well, it kind of is. It's a very speakeasy kind of setting. It's very small. People were really rowdy. It's like wonderful, and then after their performance, she walks around and everybody is putting money into her outfit. It's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that? I'm sorry. I'm not very sure if that happened. Yeah. That was the case. Now they will give her money. I don't think it happened in the American way. Yeah.
Which is good. And then of course, I want to transition out of the Tokyo with the same way we got into New York, just to everybody.
Yep.
These are the book covers. So when you're in the bookstore or looking on Amazon,
both available.
This is what you want to look for.
Don't go to Amazon. Go to your local bookstore. Ask for it.
Much better.
Support your local bookstore.
Do you have like a direct way? Do you have like a website where people can order direct from you? So you get like
no, I don't sell. I did that with New York. I would sell my book, but you know what?
It seems like a pain.
Yeah, it's so much work, and yeah, I don't sell them myself because that's the thing. I'm very blessed that I have a publisher and a distribution network. So basically, they're in all the stores around the world. It's on Amazon, and I'm not self-publishing, so I don't have. I do have books here in the house, but they're for like a special edition with print that I still want to do. But yeah, I'm very blessed with a distribution network. So I've learned with making this book. I'm a photographer. There is a graphic designer who's very good at telling a narrative, creating a visual, creating the cover, and in totally two different ways. And that's his specialty. I leave him doing that. We discuss about pictures, but he knows what he's doing, and I have to trust that he's doing the right thing. And then you have the publisher with a commercial department who needs to sell the book, who's choosing the cover, and they're good at selling. They throw the book out in warehouses around the world, and so selling is not my thing. And I don't even know if it's running well. Each year I get a statement, we sold that many books, and that's it. So I'm actually very glad that I'm the photographer and not the sales guy.
Well, I have to be one of your unknown in the woods customers sometimes soon. And our last piece over here, Cadets, which I know nothing about except.
Yeah.
So this is making me think. Again, not this shot, but so this is. I'm assuming in New York.
Yes. So this is one of those.
I mean, the reason I'm thinking is because when I was a kid, for some strange reason, had this fixation on the military, which led to eventually me being in the military for a short period of time. But I was in the Bronx, let's go to where I grew up. I was in the Kingsbridge Armory had a cadet program. And so they were all just basically, you had the different branches were represented.
Yes,
None of them actually affiliated per se, but they all pretended.
exactly.
And so is this what that is?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was so basically I was a member of this kind of thing way back.
And so this is one of those personal projects that, you know, I'm a photo festival Naden had a beautiful showcase of these large prints with these babies, these kids in military uniforms, and I've been shooting it so it's an ongoing thing. It's now on hold because a lot of things happened. So I started off. If you go back, can you go back to the folder, Keith?
No, sure.
Yeah, if you can go to the other one with the brick. The one with the brick. Yeah, the black and white photos.
Oh,
yeah.
the black one. Okay.
Well, this is shot on. Yeah, so basically this is shot on film. So this was in 2008. That's when the Iraqi war was still happening.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Brooklyn and I was in the bus, and this is what I saw. I saw these kids on the street. I'm like, what is this? What is going on here? I had no clue. I wandered the streets and I started to ask, like, did you see? And so it turned out there was this church on Myrtle Avenue, and in the basement of the church, they ran this cadet program. So it was like an ex-military guy who was doing this after-school program, kids in uniforms, doing push-ups and singing songs. And I was like, this is crazy, and in a church nevertheless, which is kind of like make it easy. So if you so I started so I brought my work and I showed the picture and said, would it be okay to take beautiful portraits of the children with all respect? And like, I didn't think of anything but the fact that I had my own motivations. My personal motivations was, these are children, and they're being put in a situation that is kind of not childlike. It's like, it's the ramification of war, of uniforms, and of weapons. And I, as a child, have also been put in a situation that I had to, like, at a very early age, been put in situations that adults should have been put in. And so that's my connection that I had with the children. It's children not being allowed to be children. That's my personal motivation. But that is not important when it comes to, like, photographing the children. I wanted to photograph the beautiful children. So if you go back to the Mr. Jackson, that's the guy with the yellow. No, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
The guy with the yellow handkerchief on his neck.
Okay.
That's one of the pictures that I shot. It was filmed 4x5 inch. So it was like it's not even a Linhof. I had, like, what is the Sinar, like an old big old Sinar, heavy Sinar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was photographing these kids with one small pop. And so I started to photograph portraits, and I printed them for them, and everybody was happy. I was happy, they were happy. But when I showed this work, I noticed I got really intense reactions towards it. Like, people got angry. People, especially when you go back to the black and whites, when you see the kids marching with rifles. I noticed people were also, like, making references to the child soldiers in Africa. They were looking, what is this in Africa? They were like, but then they looked at the uniforms and they were like, but those are American uniforms. Like, so again, talking about your questions. So it's like, there were so many questions. They were like, you need to photograph more because it's not clear what this is. It's beautiful, but what is this? So then I started to photograph like a personal journalistic project, the things around it, the rehearsals, the exercises. And so just, you can just walk through it. Maybe I can, like, tell. So the interesting thing is, this was my first army that I photographed, my first battalion. So these were all African-American kids, maybe one or two Latinos. And you can still actually see the imprint of the 4x5 inch sheets and like in the dark room, like when it's being held. to dry on
Yeah,
the
right,
pin. You'll see that.
right there.
So this is actually the background is also very popping. It's actually a tablecloth that I found in the church, and I put it so kind of like I kind of liked the the juxtaposition of like army roughness and then the flower pattern, which is a distinct difference that enhances each other.
Yeah.
And just actually they really remind me of beautiful old paintings from the golden age where these it kind of like reminds me of Kehinde Wiley. I don't know if you know that painter. Kehinde Wiley is an American painter. He painted Obama and his wife.
Yeah, I know.
He paints all these he paints African American normal people, and he puts them in settings that are well known for the times when the victors were on the horse, war scenes, or like angel, so that actually Kehinde actually purchased one of my prints because it very much references what he was referring to in his complete oeuvre of work. It's a very classical way of taking portraits, but it tells a story. But the stories were so different. I felt like people were angry at the guns, people were angry at putting children in uniforms, and they didn't really understand that there was so much more to it than just the visual that I presented, which was kind of a shame. But I let everything be as it is, let people form their opinion the way that they wanted to form it. I had my own opinion and my own thoughts about about everything, but it kind of references also to the fact that a lot of the children go into the army because that's kind of like the only way to like get ahead in life, because they were often like unprivileged neighborhoods. There was not else than what can you do than to be a security guard or to go into crime. Like the choices were very limited, and it kind of also shows the distinction between living a privileged life that I live and the life of often of these kids. They often lived, not often, but they sometimes lived in shelters or they lived with their grandparents. So there was like this whole story of like, there are people trying to take care of children that need to be taken care of and so I do find, so if you look at the other pictures, you can just browse through them.
Okay.
So I do find sometimes there are like these heartbreaking scenes. It's kind of like the tough love approach of like, the children are basically learned to deal with rough situations and to like be able to construct yourself in an orderly manner in order to deal with a rough situation. And that can be life-saving when you're outside of this environment. When you're on the street or in a situation that somebody pushes your button, it's very important to be able to control your emotions. And that's kind of like, so I saw like a whole different thing that the kids were taught, even if, the reason why they're being taught it's awful, that they need to learn this or that. But I saw that there was a certain amount of love of people who really cared about these children. And this is the way that they cared about. There's a lot of love going on as well. Mm-hmm. But then you see this, and it's like right away, you're like, a lot of people like right away react to it in a very visceral way. Like, this is awful. This is like, that's the thing. That's kind of like the manipulation of photography. I have one image that shows something that creates a reaction, an opinion, a judgment that doesn't necessarily have to be the real thing. But then again, this is part of the training as a cadet. I don't know what your experience.
Well, see, again, I haven't gone through all this. It's good. I was there because I wanted to be, but what I'll give it is sometimes, again, it gives them, some of these kids, a sense of belonging in the way some neighborhoods
Exactly.
will have like will start up a
Exactly.
basketball team. You'll have various things that they actually make these kids feel like they're a part of something that is
Exactly. They belong. That is so important. Yeah.
and and then what they're going through here is because it ends up just being a sense of discipline. Like I'm most people who know me can never picture me in the military, but I was in the military, and I did learn.
You sucked it up. You sucked it up.
I learned some very, very interesting lessons from the whole thing.
Right.
And I also believe it's good that not necessarily the military, but I would, and I'm sure this is not a popular opinion, but I do believe that I could see not just the United States, but every democracy should have, like, everybody should go through a short period of time where you have a really crappy job and you have to take orders from people who you somehow feel superior to. And you still have to just suck it up and do it, because that's life. You're going to what's going to have to take, you're going to find somebody who's in a position of authority over you, who you think that in your head doesn't deserve that spot, but that doesn't matter. It's just the way things go. And like, if you can do these things without having to necessarily hold a gun, and the guns these kids are using are just wooden replicas. I can argue any side of this whole thing, and I don't think that we should necessarily be trying to get kids wanting to be in the military. But I actually did want to be in the military at that point. Right. I wasn't coerced. These kids, again, my upbringing might be different. Again, I lived a privileged life, and so I had opportunities that some people aren't going to have, and I still chose poorly. But what's good? This, just everybody's got their own thing. But yeah, these kids are getting a sense of belonging, and so when you see them being yelled at, or these kids over here, which I know they're doing leg, they're being forced to do leg lifts, and as a punishment.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah. That's a good observation.
As soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what they were doing, and. And so it's good. This kid on the right is what's going on, is fighting it out. And but again, they're told that, like, you have to adhere to this code of ethics. And then if they hear that when you're out at school or somebody in the neighborhood rats you out that you did something stupid, they're going to make an example of you there. And no one wants to be amongst their peers in their little group. They don't want to be called out. They don't want to be excluded from it. So they're going to, outside of this group, they're going to toe a line in order to, when they get back to the group, they're not going to be what's called, again, the disciplinary problem, and just being called out. And anyway, again, it's a weird way, but sometimes it's a much better thing than having kids run off and sell drugs or get into fights and stuff like that. So it's not perfect.
So yeah,
but
this is interesting, because this is the second cadets group that I photographed. So I got in touch with another group, and this was all almost 100% Hispanic, Latino. And so basically, what I realized here is there was like a graduation day, and so like all the parents came with the children. And there were even like representatives of the Army and the Navy that were also visiting. And they got their promotions. This is like basically after school, but it's like real-time rules. Everything was done. It was basically a mirror image of, like, a military society with all the different, you have privates, you have so this is the colonel, Colonel Irizarry, who and he's like the sweetest guy, but he looks so mean in this picture. But so this was all Hispanic. And what I realized, and that's like something now suddenly became very contemporary, because I noticed that the parents, I saw the pride of the parents, who are all immigrants from different countries. And then I realized that these parents, look at this badass, like on the left, like I realized that they wanted the kid to be better citizens than any normal citizen. They just want to do the extra mile to, like, to be a better citizen. I noticed that the motivation of the parents were sometimes as like, we are we have immigrated to the United States, but we want our children to be as successful as possible as an American. And that's what I realized, that, that these cadets, that was another level of story that the cadets were holding. Yeah.
Very cool. Again, when I saw those pictures come up, was like, oh my God, I'm thinking this has got to be something like that. I haven't thought about the cadets in so much longer than any of the, if you take a stack a bunch of those kids on each other, multiply their ages, it's been that long since I've thought about that.
And these were all they're ranging from 6 to 17. And the interesting thing is the new rules, so they're not allowed to march with their fake wooden rifles on the street anymore. Basically, so now everything has to be indoor except for Veterans Day. That's when they go out into the city, and then they can march in whatever parade they chose to be in. Yeah. I actually gave you those images because I still feel it's a very powerful story, and I really feel that I really want to connect with that major again and see if he's still doing it, because I still think it's just but my idea is now also I would like to know how they live, which is kind of it's getting more complicated. But I would love to photograph one of those cadets in their bedroom, or in whatever. But then you go into people's private spaces, and then it becomes a completely different story. But it tells more of the story of the cadets. Yeah.
It could be interesting to following a day in the life of, or over the course of a year, following 2 cadets and see what their
right. So people have also said it would be nice to do the same cadets, but then 10 years later, you have these projects that you follow up on how have they developed.
Right.
Isn't that this documentary in England that every 10 years they were following these kids? What is it called again? Oh yeah, it's this beautiful document. It started in the 60s and it's still going on. And it's nice to show. It shows life basically and growing, and But there's only as much as I can do, with the limited amount of time that I have.
I hear you. Well, again, I thank you for within that limited amount of time for giving me so much of your time. Again, let's go.
Thank you so much. I told you before, I have this hate-love relationship with these kind of interviews, because it's it's like a guy talking about his me projects, and I kind of feel a little bit ambivalent of showcasing myself. But then you said in our pre-conversations that it is actually very nice to share whatever I've experienced, and to share that with people who are just have the same passions, and who knows, somebody picks something up, gets inspired, and starts to do his own thing, and that's absolutely true. So I do this kind of of course, any photographer loves to talk about his own stuff. That is true. But I do love to see this also as doing service to people who share the same passion.
Exactly.
And I totally commend you for doing these interviews and sharing that passion with the World Wide Web.
I find it fun because I get to find out how people do things. I love talking about photography. I love meeting people. So this is so, it's fun for me. And so I hope, I know that everybody can learn something from everybody. So it's not just a vanity project where I'm asking you to just sit there and beat your chest and hey, this is me.
Right.
Because you're sharing, like you said, you're giving back by what's good.
Right,
You've got a set of experiences that are different from other people's. So bits and pieces of that can be taken from anybody and can go, oh, I can use that and see it in a different way. So if I always think, if anybody gets one thing out, even with a purchase, if you buy one of those courses online, if you get one thing out of it, you're ahead. Because otherwise, it's one thing you didn't have to go out and fail and learn yourself. It's you just got a little bit of a jump start. So thank you
That's
for
one,
sharing.
actually, that's one of the one of the reasons why I left the Netherlands and moved to New York City. I asked a photographer in the Netherlands once, like, how did you make that picture? What did you do? And then the answer was like, there's a saying in Holland. It's like, that's the secret of the smith. That's like, so the person didn't wanna share it because that's the secret of his trade. And I was like, and when I came to New York and I met other photographers who were so freely in giving, they were like, this is my notebook with all the telephone numbers. Write the names and numbers. Go ahead. You got to do your own thing, but here I'm helping you out. These are my connections. And I've realized that New York City was such a city where people, like, we all come here with a certain path, with a certain goal, with a certain dream, and we all trying to make it somehow. And
Right.
I noticed I got so much help when I came here, whether it was hiring me, whether it was like showing me around, whether it's like making connections or buying my art. And now that I'm kind of like, paying my bills with it and going along, I noticed if anybody would contact me and ask me for any help or any favor or any questions, here I am. I'll share with you like it's been shared to me. Like I'll do the same thing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, again, thank you. You've been very, very generous with your time. Again, I will definitely. I'll give you a heads up so you can avoid me if I'm in New York. Let's go. But if there's since I don't know where you are, I'll try to go through the channels. But again, one of these days, I'd like to. I'd love to meet up in person and not just over this whole amazing electronic thing.
It will be wonderful to shake hands, Keith. Thank you so much. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. You take care. And just since your day is just starting and mine's I'm
It
about
is.
to go grab wine with a friend. So enjoy your day and we'll talk soon, hopefully.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm gonna be looking for your books.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.